Oh, I gotta fix my camera. Look at me looking all crazy. Okay. Anyways, happy Wine Wednesday, everyone. So glad you're joining us. Hope your week has been fabulous. Hope your seahorse tanks are wonderful. If you didn't see my post, I've got some really exciting news about the seahorses coming my way. But wanted to say happy Wine Wednesday to everybody. And the topic tonight, Cheryl had the idea because people, excuse me, different businesses have different acclimating procedures, and they'll tell you to acclimate your seahorses differently. So we're going to quiz Holly on her acclimating procedure. We're going to ask Cheryl what she and Ray what they think is best, and just kind of chit chat about the differences and what's right and what's wrong. So happy Wine Wednesday! Welcome Ray, Holly, Cheryl, and everybody in the audience. Hi. So hey, Holly, first of all, do you send instructions with your seahorses? I know I'm the first, but will you? Oh, don't tell me
Well,
I'm.
you're the first, but yeah, I would be sending instructions if I, do sell and ship in the future.
Gotcha.
And when I have people come, well, so far all the seahorses has been local. So when they come and get them, I tell them my water parameters ahead of time so they can be ready. And then they can acclimate, for temperature, so on if they need to. But I tell them if you match my parameters, you can just put the seahorse directly in your tank.
Gotcha.
If you have the same salinity as I do and your temperature is the same, then go ahead and just put them in. Otherwise, then do acclimate them, to match your water. Shipping, I think, is different
Sure.
because they've been in the shipping bag probably for days, and the sooner they go directly in the tank, the better. So when I'm receiving seahorses that have been shipped, I follow the acclimation instructions they give me, but all of them I've ever received just say acclimate for the temperature and then put them directly in your tank without the water. You just pick them up and put them in. That's how I do it.
Gotcha. And I mean, I know that Dan's been on before. We've talked about acclimating before, but it was interesting because Cheryl's been doing this so long and she got seahorses from a different source this time, which I'll let her describe and explain. But I'm just curious to hear if the acclimating procedures are different and if it matters if the package gets stuck in shipping. But first, Ray, when you got seahorses, did you have a particular acclimating procedure or did you just follow the guidelines?
It evolved over a period of time. When I first started, I was doing it like I did with any of my marine fish that I would get. Um, I'd open a bag and put, uh, yeah, now the name of the thing is just gone.
The like the
You
to
find it,
drip.
Chloramax.
Oh, right, right, right.
So I put Chloramax in, then pin the bag to the tank so I could get the water temperature uh, stabilized. And then I just lift them out with my hands and let it drip off for a few seconds and then put them in the tank.
Mm,
Eventually, uh, I guess after a lot of posts that Dan had made,
hmm
um, I'm not sure, it's probably 7 or 8, no, I guess longer than that, with Erectus. It was probably close to 10 years ago
hmm
uh, when I got some Erectus from Florida, Seahorse Corral.
Right, right.
Um, at that time, then instead of putting the Chloramax in, I just did the float the bag until it acclimated that way, and then opened the bag and pulled them out right away. Um,
Yep. Scoop and
my
drop is
concern was
good.
always the development of the ammonia. Once you open that bag, then the ammonia develops. So after seeing Dan's post there, I was convinced that there wasn't a problem. The ammonia, if you don't open the bag, the ammonia is not going to be effective.
Right.
So just acclimate to the temperature and then put them in the tank and drop in the, or the pH difference wasn't going to be enough to be a
Cause for
problem for them.
Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
5 years ago, when I got the order from Australia, then the abs and the barbs, then I did it that way also.
Gotcha. And I mean, you're absolutely right. And as Holly mentioned, the temperature is the biggie. You just don't want them to go from, a drastic change in temperature. So floating the bag's a big deal. But Ray hit on a really important point too about not opening it. I actually made a video many years ago. I'll tell the story really quickly before we get to Cheryl. But I had ordered seahorses from a store that was an hour away. I knew the seahorses were coming from Seahorse Savvy, so I knew they were quality seahorses, and they shipped fine. They came when they were supposed to. I can't. They were the hybrids. That's right. And what happened is I raced down to the store when they called me and they said the seahorses are here. Come pick them up. And I'm thinking, well, okay, it's just like they're still in shipping. No big deal. It's only an hour. And I did take, like a cooler and an air bubbler in case I needed it and all this other stuff. But here's what happened. The people at the store, which I won't mention, opened the bag because they had ordered 3 seahorses and I only ordered 2. So they opened the bag, took out the one seahorse for them. Oh, I'm sorry. I meant to mention, because back then I was really, really super careful about not buying seahorses from a place that would mix them with the water of other fish. Like, I've calmed down quite a bit since then, but still, it's better if seahorses are in a species only tank and, not in a tank that's connected to all the other fish tanks that might have problems, right? And so I was super worried that they were going to stick my seahorses into their tanks, and I did not want that. And so I said, don't put them in the tank. Well, they opened the bag, took their one seahorse out, and then reclosed the bag. Okay, that is like the no, 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 no. And because, as Ray was kind of implying, as soon as you open the bag, I'm not a scientist, I can't give you the H2O plus C23, but the bottom line is, once you open the bag and the oxygen hits that water, pH problems and ammonia. Like if they, most people nowadays use Chlormax or Prime or something in the bag, but if the shipping's taken more than 2 days or whatever, bottom line is they can get ammonia poisoning. And in my case, the bag was opened and then reclosed, which is just like,
Oh no.
terrible. So they had ammonia poisoning. I did a video on it. I'm going to quit rambling, but I will try to link it when we're done in case you ever have that problem, because it can be fixed, but you want to avoid it. So anyways, back to the point. Ms. Cheryl, I'm curious with you, with your most latest seahorses, was the acclimating procedure different? Because I know it used to be with Ocean Rider. They had a big...
Ocean Rider basically on their website tells you to open the bag, start to temperature acclimate them, put in a cup of water from your tank into the bag, then remove a cup of water, and again, add more tank water. That's on their website.
Mm-hmm.
However, I've been doing this long enough. I know darn good and well the moment you open that bag,
Right.
you're going to start getting spikes in ammonia.
Mhm.
And so I messaged them, and Peter Giovanni messaged me back. And as he explained it to me, normally when you're doing long distance shipping, you keep a lower pH in the bag.
Oh.
What this does then is it reduces the potential for ammonia to form and actually converts to ammonium in the bag.
Right.
So as soon as you open that bag, you're going to get a spike in ammonia.
Mm-hmm.
And what this does then, when you get a spike in ammonia or nitrites, is basically it converts the hemoglobin, basically your oxygen carrying blood in the seahorses, it converts them from regular hemoglobin to methemoglobin, which can no longer carry O2.
Brown
And
blood. Isn't it called brown blood disease or something? Isn't that what
Yes.
it's... Okay, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Exactly. And this is when you get the seahorses that come out of the bag that are bumping into walls or start to hitch and then fall off the hitch. They're totally ataxic. And his response was temperature acclimate them and get them out of the bag.
Good. I'm so glad. And we need to tell them to change their website. But sorry, guys, I keep messing with my hair because it's poofy hair day. But anyways, go ahead, Cheryl.
Well, it's just one of those things where if you understand the chemistry behind what's going on, it makes sense.
Mhm.
But for the average person reading this, I read that and I immediately messaged Carol there at Ocean Rider and said, whoa,
Yeah,
this is going to kill seahorses after they've been in a bag for 7 days.
Sure.
yeah.
And the longer they're in the bag, I'm sure that's even more
Yeah.
serious. But go
Well, the
ahead.
thing is, the cooler temps will also help.
Hmm.
Keep in mind that when you put a seahorse into a dark place in a cool environment, they have a tendency to go torpid.
Hmm.
So they don't release. They also typically don't feed them before they put them in the bag. So you have very little detritus in the bag. You should not get an ammonia spike if they've been bagged correctly
Right.
until you open that bag.
And thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate you explaining because mine was so non-scientific. It's pH, ammonia. Just don't do it. But Cheryl gave you the down low on because I'd forgotten. In the video, you can actually see, and I will link it. I won't forget, guys. But you can actually see my poor seahorses were like, oh my gosh, they were. They'd shoot across the tank and hit a wall, and they'd just sit there and lay, and they couldn't. Oh, it was just awful. And I actually walked through how I treated them and
Yeah,
saved them. I still
yeah,
have one of the
they'll
hybrids,
bump
so
it. They'll bump into the sides of the tanks. They're totally unaware of the surroundings and incapable of basically controlling their bodies.
right.
And I mean, it's really sad to watch. The
Mm.
thing is, though, it's like if you keep them cool, you keep them in the dark place, they're going to go torpid. So when they're in the bag, even if it's for a prolonged period of time, as long as the conditions are right, basically they're going to be sleeping.
Right, right.
Oh, that brings up another thing I do. You got to keep in mind when they're shipped to you, like Cheryl was saying, they're in a box. They're in complete darkness the whole
Hmm.
time till they get to you. So another thing that I do is I turn out all the lights, like room lights, the lights of the tank, and I put them in as dark as I can in the room so that they can get used to the light as
Right.
well.
That
Because
that
their
you,
little eyes, they can't close their eyes and they've
yeah.
been in the dark for
They
days.
have eyelids.
Yeah. Yeah. So imagine that would suck for us. So I
Right.
imagine how it is for them.
Well, Ocean Rider on their website, if I recall correctly, says leave them basically in a dark environment and don't feed them for 12 hours.
Oh
Now,
wow.
normally, particularly if they've been shipped for a long time, they're going to be starving.
Yeah.
And what I will typically do is give them, it depends on what I'm seeing in them,
Right.
but 2 to 3 hours in a very dark, quiet environment. Then what I do is go in, keeping the lights off, and I add live food.
Mm.
Because what this does is typically a seahorses are that they may be hitched there, they're still going to be stressed. And the live food, all of a sudden the seahorses forget that they're in a new environment because now
They're chasing
there's
food.
live food to
Right.
chase.
Right.
And
Well,
I'll add
I wanted to really quick say for anybody who's not got the live foods on hand or didn't order them or prepare them with frozen foods, you can. I don't usually feed right away. Right away, Dan. When Dan sent me the piebalgs, he said, "Oh yeah, they're fine. Feed them." And I was like, "Well, they're scared. They're just sitting there." I think I made a video on that. If I can find it, I'll link it. But the first time I fed the piebalgs, they did not eat. They sat there, and it was frozen, not live. So I see your point, Cheryl. But I just cleaned it up, and like I don't even know, like maybe an hour later, you could tell they wanted to eat it, but they were
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
and I hadn't
I
done
just
any.
say if they want to eat, let them eat. I always
Try,
try. I'll give
yeah,
them like a couple hours, and then I'll give them a little and see. I've had some come and then want to eat like right away,
yep, me
and
too.
others are shy. It kind of depends on their personalities too, I think. But just kind of see what they want to do.
And now I
And if
am, I am
put
gonna.
in food and they don't eat it, suck it out and try
well,
again later.
That's
Ocean Rider sends live shrimp with each shipment of
right.
seahorses. So you
Yeah,
are getting live food specifically for that reason. They know that, hey, live food, eventually, even if they sit there for 15 minutes staring at it, sooner or later, they're going to start hunting.
yeah.
And it's inevitable. And you can just watch them come alive.
I was just, sorry, I didn't mean to turn that up, guys. Just anybody in the audience, let me know if we sound too loud. For some reason, it's echoing in my ears, so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't being too loud, because I'll turn it down if so. But no, and that's, really a smart idea on Ocean Rider's part, but that's not to knock any hobby or any breeder who doesn't have special red shrimp on hand. That's awesome that they do it, but go ahead, Holly.
Well, I got my
Oh.
my Ocean Rider seahorses. I got them 12,000 aquaculture amphipods.
Right, and you can't. I mean, of course, it's a really. Cheryl's right. It's a really smart idea to get live feeds in when you know you're getting new seahorses. I'm not doing that, Holly, because I'm trying to test the easiest way for the easiest, everything. But if they didn't eat, I'd of course get them some. I'm lucky enough to have a store near me that does carry
Well, I
live.
don't give mine live food so that they won't be hurt.
Sure.
Their feelings won't be hurt.
Well, and like I was saying with the piebalds, you could tell they wanted to eat so bad. And I'll just jump in real quick and say that one of the things that I did not have set up well for the piebalds is that they were in a tank that was literally like very open and very in a walkway. I had so many tanks at that point that they were literally in my bedroom with two other tanks and us walking in and out, and they were right by the door, and it was just really excitable. I don't know if that's the right word, but so yeah. And what I did, and I know I did a video, so I'm gonna find it when we're done, but what I ended up doing is as I was videotaping this and showing, don't freak out if they won't eat when you throw food in. Just clean it up, and then when you try again, try backing away from the tank. Like if you sit there with your eat, they're gonna. And you guys in the Zoom didn't see, but I was giving them a big eyeball. Anyways, that's kind of freaky. They got a big human head in their.
Well, I kid
face.
about it. I'm real good at sitting on empty buckets.
Yeah.
It puts me down low. I can sit back away from them and I can watch and see what they're doing.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
but all my tanks are in a room that's just specifically for seahorses,
And that's
which makes it easier for me.
absolutely. Right.
That's what a house is for.
Right. Hey Ray, you haven't had a chance to jump in. Do you typically feed like I know it's been a while, but when you first got seahorses in?
As of yesterday, I'm not feeding them live.
Oh,
I
not.
crashed my brine shrimp culture yet.
Oh no! What happened? Just crashed?
Don't know.
Oh.
Happens to me every once in a while, but this one I just basically started harvesting on them last week. Like I hatch out a heaping tablespoon of cis at a time, and it takes me to get them to adult size where they're reproducing. It takes about 7 weeks to get them that size. So I get working on one bucket. They're in 26-gallon Rubbermaid containers, and the containers are sitting on a sloped base, so that there's a low point of the bottom that I can have the airline at. But after I'm about 3-4 weeks into using a container of them, that's when I start the next container.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ready when the first container runs out.
Right.
Well, I haven't even been harvesting long enough. I haven't got another one started yet, and all of a sudden, bingo, I screw up something.
Well, I mean, they're doing
the
okay.
worst thing is not knowing what happened, but with my cognitive impairment, I do some stupid things sometimes.
Well, I don't even think it's just that. I've never been able to, like, when Dan and Cheryl finally share their brine shrimp hatching tricks with us. I'm visiting Dan soon, guys. I'm going to get that on video. But anyways, we'll maybe figure it out.
No problem.
What?
Hatching them's no problem. Growing them in intensive cultures is a problem.
No, I agree. And all I was going to say is I've never been able to keep either a hatchery or the rearing facility, like trying to raise them as you're describing. I've never been able to do that long term. I always have a problem. Have to start
off doing it in very low densities.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty easy to do it in low densities, and then just start increasing the densities. This obviously this is going to take a period of time,
Right.
but if you start off low and get some success that way, then you can increase the densities and feel your way as you go along, and I'm sure you'll get to a point where you're going to succeed.
I get what I do is I tend to throw them into a big bucket and I forget that I've got them. And then I have my best success with brine shrimp.
Man, I remember.
Better that way.
I
I
remember.
broke
feed them
them
4 times a
accidentally,
day.
and that was the best success I had.
I was gonna say Tom Hornsby in the UK, excuse me, used to show me that they had pods and amphipods and artemia, and they would just have them in buckets. I mean, like the pods, I know that's different, but they'd have them in buckets outside with like seaweed on the top, and it's like, what? Huh?
The copepods were really easy for me, but the brine shrimp are more sensitive. And the only success I had in raising them, I didn't try that hard, but I had them growing up in I had like a little reptile tank, only probably about maybe 7, 8 inches high, that I used to keep water warm, to keep my hatching boxes warm enough when the temperatures went low. And I guess I'd spill brine shrimp in there sometimes, and it grew up in there. Just eating whatever spilled enrichment or whatever, they grew up. So when I needed some adults, well, I'd get them out of there and clean them up. But when I tried to raise them outside, it didn't work.
Right.
And I think it had to do mostly, I think, from what Dan said, the temperatures for them cannot get too low. And I think that's a big part of it.
Well,
Yeah,
so
Copepods can take lower
Mine are
temperatures.
usually
They will
in the
live.
range of 52 to 68 degrees.
oh wow.
Mhm.
Now,
Well,
if I
yeah.
had them outside tonight, the salt would keep it from freezing, but the water would be freezing temperature.
Mm.
We're going back to freezing tonight, and then a week from today, we're supposed to get up around 50 degrees again.
Well, I just got to say, Ray, either way, I'm so sorry to hear that you did have the crash, but, obviously you're doing something really
I've had it
well.
before, so it's,
Yeah,
it's something it's frustrating. I'd rather, if it's going to crash, leave it till they're almost all gone and then crash.
right, exactly. So, but back to the point. Oh, wait, actually, before we go back, Ray, the seahorses are still fine, though, because they'll just eat frozen, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's what I figured. And so,
I
wait,
don't like to feed them too often with the brine shrimp because there's always the possibility that they're going to go off the feed for the frozen.
right. And I mean, but giving seahorses an enriched Artemia treat, that's kind of how I do it too. Not all the time, but as often as I can is always good, but not necessary. But anyways,
I'd
Ray,
like to be able to get amphipods here, but
right,
they won't ship them up from the States.
which is a bummer.
I tell you, this last shipment of amphipods I got, they were all beautiful, good size adults, about the same size, even slightly larger than a full grown mysid shrimp. I was
Wow.
really, really pleased.
And where'd you get them,
Where do
Cheryl?
you get them, Cheryl?
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
Where did you get them?
I got those from they call themselves Are You Salty now? It's Aquaculture Nursery Farm.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I typically keep amphipods and mysids and stuff like that on hand. But with 4 little guys that were hungry, I got them a bunch.
right. Aquaculture Nursery Farms is great. I've ordered from them too. They're really pretty decent. I was sad when they didn't have mysids for quite a while. But Ray, anyways, I was just wondering, but kind of backing up, but I was just wondering when you used to get new seahorses. I know it's been a while, but did you feed right off the bat, or did you wait a while? How did you handle that?
I have never delayed the feeding.
Okay, right. So always try, at
I
least
didn't think
try.
there was any question in it.
No, there's not. I just, I think people freak out when they try to feed, and if the seahorses won't eat right away, they get really worried. At least I did when I was new. So,
Yeah.
I don't remember it happening that way, but it's possible. But that's a long time ago. Like these ones here is 5 years ago since I got them, and the ones before that is about 10 years ago, 9 at least. Um, Now, in the first earlier years, I just didn't know enough, and I was going through seahorses faster. I think my first few years, probably the longest I had kept one. I might have had one or two that survived 2 years, but most of them I lost because I didn't know what I
Right.
needed to know to keep them properly.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I hear you, but now you got
I
it
thought
figured
that
out.
testing them with the water parameter kits, and if it showed all okay, then there's nothing wrong with the water.
Right. Right. No, I hear you. And I mean, you got it figured out, whatever, maybe just the way, you learned how to feel them out. You know what I mean? I don't know how else to say it, but it does make a difference when you've been doing it for a while and you can just tell when something's not right or whatnot. But,
Well, it's one of those things where if you've stared at seahorses for enough years,
yep.
you're gonna know ahead of time. I mean, forget the test kits. You're gonna know if something's going wrong in the tank. They're gonna tell you. And your test kits may know. I mean, we don't have a test kit for Vibrio.
Right.
You don't have a test kit for dissolved or
Yeah.
dissolved organics either.
Right.
I was just working with somebody that what was it? That they've got some fish in quarantine, and they've been treating them for ick. And then they just came to the realization when they started developing lesions, they have uronema.
Oh. That's
And
the
I have
worst.
successfully treated seahorses for uronema. However, it's not easy.
Right. That's like the worst one. You're like, no, not that. For
I've
sure.
never ever had it in any of my marine tanks or seahorse tanks, so I've been very fortunate.
Well, I got it. It came in with some seahorse, some tiger tails, hippocampus cobes
Mm.
that came out of Southeast Asia. And it was during the basically when they were net pen raised and shipping out in vast quantities as pets. And a friend of mine actually had them and gave them to me. And we actually ultimately had a human pathologist do the histopath on them that told us that we were dealing with uronema.
Right. I
But
was gonna say, like, I don't know that I've ever had uronema, but I've lost seahorses and not known why. Cheryl, with uronema, is there always symptoms, like specific symptoms?
Mr. Ayers, what?
Okay, hang on. Heather says I'm sounding robotic. Am I getting better? Let me
Sounds
know.
good to me.
Yeah.
Well, you guys in the Zoom will always hear me well, but it's the people watching the video. Heather, tell me if it was just a glitch or if I'm still And Laura, if you have another small tank setup that has identical water as the display tank, could you open the shipping bag underwater and then transfer the seahorses to the display tank? We'll answer that in a second. But Cheryl, what did you just say? Because I
The
was
problem with
gonna
that,
apply.
yeah, you're going to get a spike in ammonia as soon as you do that.
because the water in the bag is already going to have, as
The
Cheryl
water in the
explained earlier.
bag, it already is ammonia.
Right.
And as soon as you add fresh water and open the bag with oxygen,
Yeah.
it's going to immediately cause that to convert back to ammonia.
So as just in case she was breaking up or whatever, the ammonia turns into ammonium in the bag. Open it up, oxygen hits it, ammonium turns into ammonia, and your seahorses are like, I don't want to be drastic, but like they're getting burned. Prime and all that does help, but if they've been in the bag for more than 2 days or whatever, and then if you pour that water into that smaller tank, or I know what you're saying, insert the bag and just let them swim out. then that water is mixing with the water. And even though you're going to take them out of that and put them into the other tank, it's still going to be time that they're sitting in high ammonia water. Unless you're
I
talking
just
about a
think that's
huge tank.
worse for them. I think they can handle the small differences in your tank water,
Right.
like salinity, pH, all those kind of things. They're going to be able to handle better than that ammonia surge.
Ammonia and nitrites.
They're gonna, I mean, your water might be a little bit different, but they'll acclimate to that better than they're gonna handle
Right.
that ammonia.
The thing is, what's going to happen, think about it realistically. Where do many species of seahorses and where are erectus commonly found? They're found in estuary type environments or near estuaries, which means anytime it rains, they're getting a change in pH. They're getting a change in salinity.
Mhm.
And they have adapted to work through it. Those are not going to be your killers. The killers are going to be the ammonia, the nitrites, and if the nitrates get high enough, those are going to be your primary killers.
Okay, and I do see you guys saying that I still sound like a robot. I'm so sorry. Not sure what's going on. For some reason, everybody sounds really loud to me. You know what? I did drop the equipment right before we started. That could be it. Not sure. Hang on. Let me listen to it. Let me listen to it and see if it sounds that way.
Supposed to be people in my age that do all this dropping and stuff.
No, no, it's me too.
Hey, mine is forget.
Maybe she only looks young.
Oh, jeez, now this won't even work. Do. I'm sorry, guys. My phone is like giving me a
Well,
mess now.
for
Go ahead,
those
talk.
of you who missed it, well, Kelly's fixing this. I was in the fish room, heard a huge bang, scared the you know what out of me. All of a sudden, I look up and my ceiling fan is blowing out all this bright red colors. So I felt flip the breaker. Yeah, I blew it literally cut off power to one entire wall of the room.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
Fortunately, I didn't have any fish in the tanks on that side, and I had enough extra outlets to take care of what I needed to do. But then the electrician I called Friday and said, "Oh, don't worry about it. We'll be out Monday."
yeah.
That one was a little scary. So that I now have a brand new waterproof LED light in place of that.
I was hearing some background talking there.
Talking, I'll just interrupt you whenever I need to. No problem. Yeah.
Okay, wait.
Just
Actually, give me one more second. I want to see. Guys, Cheryl wasn't talking to herself. Okay, wait. Actually, give me one more second. I think I fixed it. Guys, Cheryl wasn't talking. Do I sound all better to y'all? Mwah. So sorry. Thank you for letting me know when we do kind of have hiccups. I really appreciate it. But I think I
Carol
got
and
it
Holly,
fixed.
are you picking up some talking in the background?
Well, what it was I could tell she
Oh.
was playing back the YouTube stuff so she could listen and see what she
Oh.
sounded like.
Sorry,
But yeah,
Ray.
it kind of sound like that to me too. Then I figured out
Well,
what.
my hearing's not very good, even with my hearing aids on, but
Mhm.
So sorry, Ray. No, yeah, I was playing it on my phone to try to hear
Well, no
myself.
apologies. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it sounded like that to me for a
Sh-
minute too,
should
so I
should
figured it out.
should be fixed now. And I'm sorry, I of course wasn't paying attention. Where were we?
Heather says it's okay now.
Oh, good. Okay, sorry everybody. That I was all at first. Apologies.
Yeah, Kelly's broken.
Oh no. Kelly can't be broken. Hey, before I forget, because I really want to tell you guys my exciting news for tomorrow, and Holly's going to be happy to hear it too. But before I forget, I wanted to ask about acclimation. Why is it, or our fit? Is there some difference between seahorses and fish? Because I'll tell you, as a reef keeper, I have always been told to what I think it was Heather maybe what someone at Laura maybe sorry what someone had asked. I've always been told put when you open the bag, put the fish in a bucket with the water that it came in and drip acclimate, or do the cup method that's on Ocean Rider's website. That's how I've always been told with fish. And now I'm sitting here wondering, maybe that's why people have such problems with certain cleanup crew and certain fish and certain, the more, I don't want to say picky, the more sensitive fish and inverts. I just wonder if that's why it's a problem, or why can they do that with reef tank things and not,
I
and
did
does it
that
affect coral?
30 years ago or so with marine fish because basically I didn't know much then, and that's what I was told to do. But it was probably not more than 5 years when I finally decided that was a pain in the butt. So I just floated to
Mhm.
get the temperature the same, put them in, and I didn't find any survival difference.
And that is
There might be some fish that are more sensitive. I don't know.
Well, and I
that
know that with
is
fish,
cool.
like with seahorses, temperature is the big deal. Like Holly was saying earlier, everybody was saying earlier, pH changes and such aren't as they just won't affect them very much, though they can handle it. Whereas ammonia nitrites or a huge temperature change are the things you want to avoid. So maybe it's that fish have more. I say fish, other fish. Maybe it's that they're more sensitive to like the pH and the different water quality changes. And guys in the audience, this is a question I don't know. Do you?
The
One
inverts
one
are,
thing you
and
have
I'm
to
trying to
remember.
remember getting fish because I've had fish shipped before, but not in a long time.
Well,
And I
I
can't
sorry.
remember putting them directly. And I want to say for those, you did like do the gradual acclimation, adding a little bit of water to the bag at the time. I know with inverts, I do because they're more sensitive, but almost want to say the last cleanup crew I ordered, it's been a couple years, but I think even them, they might have said to just put them in the tank because
Right.
they were sick.
Well,
But I
that's
normally
Cheryl's trying to talk. Sorry, but I just wanted to say that's the question for you guys in the audience and in here is is drip acclimation still a good plan? And as Dan always says, the important thing to do when you get seahorses or fish is to follow the person follow the breeder or the store's policy, because if something does go wrong, they won't help you or refund you if you've done it your own way instead of theirs. But I'm just asking, is drip acclimation still a thing, or the cup acclimation? Do people still use that on the reef fish? And why is it so different? Because it just confuses me, because I understand. I remember when I would get a reef fish, it was like you don't want to just move it from the bag to the tank, not just because of temperature, but all of the I don't want to say calcium. I can't all that
pH.
but
stuff, pH,
Right.
all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is the way it used to be with seahorses too when I first started in seahorses. And over time, we have come to learn that we're better off getting them the heck out of the bag. But a lot of it depends. If you go to your local fish store and they bag them, put some oxygen in there, you're home in 30 minutes.
Mm.
It's a completely different world
Mhm.
I mean, you can go ahead and drip acclimate them because you're not going to be getting a spike of ammonia in that.
Yeah.
So you're
So when
saying
they're coming in,
basically the difference is whether or not they're shipped, right?
it's going to depend on how long they're going to be in the bag. I took 4 seahorses over to a friend of mine, and he did the classic Ocean Rider
Cup thing.
acclimation, where we added some water to the bag, took some water out, added some more water to the bag. When he reached in and took the seahorses out, they were happy as little clams and took off all over the place and started hunting food immediately.
Because the
But
ammonia hadn't built up, or ammonium, excuse me, right?
there was no time for it to become contaminated. Now, where so many people are ordering long distance,
Hmm.
it's going to become a completely different world, and I suspect you're going to see people changing in the way they acclimate a lot of fish.
Yeah,
They're
For
I
me,
well, I hope so.
the,
Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
the real benefit of the drip was when you know that a store keeps their fish in say 17 at a level of 17, and you're sitting at 25 or 26 in your reef.
Mhm.
Many fish can't handle that kind of an increase.
Right.
Salinity, right?
And
Yeah.
so, in spite of the
Yeah.
problem, when I know that, like we had one store here in London, all their fish only tanks were setting at 17.
Whoa.
And with all my tanks, we're running 25 and 26. Now, if you're taking a damsel out and putting it in from that level and putting it into a higher level, I don't imagine you're going to have that much problem. But
A
with my
mandarin or
tangs and
something. Yeah.
butterflies, so on like that, I wouldn't have wanted to risk it.
No, you made a
But
great point.
for sure,
Go ahead, Ray.
when I bought any sensitive fish at all from that store, then it was for sure a drip acclimation on it.
Well,
Now, mind you,
yeah,
I
the
had the
reason
Hi,
benefit
too.
of
Robert.
having the Chloromax to add into it too, though.
Well, you guys have all made good points because Cheryl pointed out it depends on, the shipping, how long they're in the bag. And you have pointed out that with fish, the salinity matters way more than with seahorses. I get that. That's a great point. And I'm just wondering and hi Robert, hi everybody joining. I'm just wondering if you in the audience still use drip acclimation, and or if you've been advised to use drip acclimation from a place that you've bought fish, seahorses, or even coral for that matter. Now coral I could see being really different because they wouldn't you don't have as much worry of buildup or waste in the bag, right? Do you guys agree with that? Like they're not peeing or pooping. I know seahorses are not fed before they're shipped and da 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 da, but with coral, there's literally like nothing. Correct, or am I off here?
Well,
What
what
do you guys
you
think?
you have to keep in mind too, one of the reasons some of these stores are keeping it such a low specific gravity
Mm.
is most likely due to parasites. There
And
was
or money, they're cheap. Sorry, go ahead, Cheryl.
no, but seriously,
Salt.
because a lot of basically protozoans and stuff like that, they're going to explode at that kind of a specific gravity. They don't have the osmotic regulation to be able to tolerate that,
Hmm.
and that is probably part of it. I'd be cautious about buying from a store that was keeping a specific gravity that low.
I
Sure, but
always
most stores won't even tell you.
I always ask them when I'm getting something at the local fish store, I ask them what their water parameters are.
Hmm.
But I've noticed like my local fish store, usually their salinity is higher than mine
Hmm.
because they're doing corals and other things, and I'm doing pretty much just the seahorses and
Yeah.
things that live with them. So I keep mine I'm at 1.022, in the specific gravity, and theirs is like 1.025 usually,
Hmm.
and so there's that difference. And I keep that in mind, when I'm getting stuff at the local fish store.
I'm glad you said that, Holly, because I usually keep my seahorse tanks at like 2.24. 0.24, excuse me. And Robert, I do see your question. How do I start a seahorse tank? You're currently very successful with acros. We'll jump to that in just a second. But maybe a few more questions specifically, like what do you mean? Like, do you want like the lowdown on what to keep in with them, or what equipment to have on the tank, how big? We've got in Seahorse Sources group. If you're interested in keeping seahorses, on Facebook, Seahorse Sources group is an excellent place. There's a file section that has information that you're seeking. We're more than willing to talk about it here. You know, ask a question, we'll answer it. But I just want to know exactly how much, what focus you want to take in. How do I set up a seahorse tank? And besides that, I keep telling you guys the website will be done soon, but it really will. So the information should be easier to find soon. And then Robert also asked, or also said, Coral, you temp acclimate, then pop and drop. Really? Right. So like seahorses. That's interesting though, because I would actually think that they would be more right. And actually, I'm sorry to jump around, but Robert, I do know that that's the case, that you don't have to worry about it because they're supposedly not as sensitive. But does that not surprise anybody else? Like we're saying, seahorses, temp acclimate, don't open the bag, pop and drop. But
Hey,
other fish are drip
hey,
acclimated still, even if they're shipped. And then coral is also temp acclimate, pop and drop. I would think coral would have more of a reaction to calcium and all that other stuff if there's salinity and all that stuff. Or is it just that they recover quickly? Do we not care? I'm curious.
They recover. I haven't had coral in a while, but I used to keep soft corals years ago. And if I remember right, it would kind of go like they weren't happy at first. If you they might take a while to open up and do their thing, but they'd be fine. They're just
Well, I
it,
remember when on my tank, sorry, when my tank leaked, and this isn't the same, I understand, but when my tank leaked and I had a friend come over, I was freaking out, of course. My reef tank, by the way, with coral. I had a friend come over, and one of the things that was like really crucial, they said, is we had to make sure that our buckets all had heaters where we put the coral because the temperature is so important. So totally understand the temperature acclimate, pop and drop. I'm interested in the fact that like, are we harming coral? Or I mean, are we being like not nice to it by popping and dropping? Or is the alternative, the ammonia that will spike when you open the bag, more bad? Cheryl, you were trying to talk. Go.
yeah, well, the ammonia is going to be your biggest killer if you're not careful. And with corals, if you are not careful and you bring in pests, acro-eating flatworms, there's just a myriad of them. And this is why most everybody, before they ever even consider putting them into a display, they're going to go ahead and go through the coral dip. They're going to quarantine the corals. And some of this may go on for a long time. I mean, when I get new snails in, I don't do it very often, but when I do, they go through a freshwater dip.
Yep. Snails, especially the species that can close. Right.
Yeah.
I do that too.
And it's just one of those things. What can you get away with, keep them alive, but keep them from killing them, and still eliminate a lot of problems down the road?
Well, I shouldn't have used the word bad because it's not bad. It's that and they end up really happy. These coral, once they're out swinging and flinging and looking all gorgeous and poofy, they're obviously happy where they're at. I just wondered
Yeah.
about the process and the acclimation.
Well, the thing is, too, a lot of our guys here that are really seriously into propagating corals, they all know each other.
Hmm.
They all work together. And Joe gives Jerry a frag. Jerry goes out a frag. Joe loses his because he did something wrong. Jerry gives him back a frag. And this is the way these guys here pretty much deal with corals around here.
Hmm. Right. And again, you already said, I just want to make sure we finalize. If anybody has questions about acclimation, ask them now, or later in the comments, but I am going to try to jump to Robert's question. But yeah, you already said very clearly it depends, there's a huge difference in whether it be coral, fish, or seahorses, whether they're being shipped and are in a bag for days, or whether they're being, transferred from house to house or picked up at a store. Huge
Hey, look,
difference.
pick up the coral in my mailbox due to the pandemic.
Right, that too. But yeah, it's the time they're in the bag for sure, Cheryl. You nailed it on the head. But so I think we covered. Oh, one last question about acclimation. So Cheryl, when we discuss temp acclimation for seahorses, which does matter, and again, guys, if you're just tuning in with seahorses, you want to keep the bag closed. Do not open it. Temperature acclimate by floating the bag. Um, Watch my video to see what happens if you if you let them sit in a bag with ammonia for too long. Ammonia poisoning, not good. Or brown blood as nitrate
Yeah.
poisoning, which Cheryl was describing.
Well,
But anyways, no.
if
Go ahead, Cheryl.
the seahorses are ataxic, that is, they have loss of motor function in the bag, you most likely already have a spike in ammonia
Yep.
because that's what's going to cause it.
But we do know that temperature acclimating is important. Just floating the closed bag. So how long do you temperature acclimate?
No
If you
more than
can't,
30 minutes.
well, here's the thing though. You can't open the bag to take the temperature.
But
So just trying to
if,
be,
well,
just trying to be.
I shouldn't say this, but if you've done this long enough, you kind of become a human thermometer
Right.
and you can touch the bag. What you're looking for is how far off. If you touch that bag and it feels almost exactly the same temperature as your tank, you're in good shape.
Pop and
If it's
drop.
ice and cold, you might want to go a little bit longer. But the thing is, everybody says don't go over 30 minutes because as you start increasing the temperature, you're going to modify other parameters,
Right.
and that is the concern.
The pH, the everything, man, everything. Temperature controls everything. I swear.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so okay, I think we've unless anybody has other thoughts or questions about acclimation, how would you answer Robert's question? How do you answer the question when someone just says, "How do I start a seahorse tank? I'm great with reef." And Ray and I have Ray said it in the comments, and I said it live. Head to Seahorse Sources group, but we want people to come here too. So like without becoming specific, what are the main things you tell people when they say, what do I need to do to start a seahorse tank?"
Don't get 10-gallon tank.
Wait,
Really?
Cheryl, what? Cheryl first.
Don't get a 10-gallon tank.
And let's specify really quickly. It does matter whether you're talking about dwarf seahorses or the larger species. We in this group typically keep the Hippocampus erectus, Hippocampus cuta, what's tiger tail? Combs, Barbori, abdominalis. Mr. Ray over there is our Barborian ab guy, though he's just now doing Barbori now. But
Yes,
subs, right, hybrids, all that. We're talking about the larger species. They need at least a 30-gallon tank. What else,
I
Cheryl?
wouldn't even put dwarfs in a 10.
Right. Well, and what didn't Dan say? A 10 with a 30-gallon sump? Wasn't that his advice? I think it was.
Well, still, I wouldn't.
But
go
you can have a
bigger
different
than,
opinion.
A 5-gallon. I used to keep around 50 in a 5-gallon.
Oh, you're saying go
so-
smaller. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Basically, because they are so darn small. People don't realize, like, you can take a silver dollar and put 3 or 4 of these things on the silver dollar.
Right. And a lot of
You
people.
put them in the tank. First of all, it's hard to see them because of the decor,
Mhm.
but then also because they're so damn small that you can be sitting there looking, trying to count up, and if you've got 50 of them there, I'll bet you can't get to 30 in your count.
Right. Well, we're kind of jumping around here, but the main things we don't dislike dwarf seahorses. They're adorable and they're wonderful, but a lot of people go for dwarf seahorses because they're less expensive and people think they can keep them in a smaller tank, which you can, but they don't live as long. You can't enjoy them as much because they're not as big. So you have to really be into dwarf species to, you know, enjoy that tank, if that makes sense. And it is more work. They require live foods. We've done plenty of Wine Wednesdays about that. But anyways, you know, completely agree. But just to let you know, when we have this discussion, we're talking about larger species. So Cheryl mentioned 30 gallons. What else, guys?
30
They're just
gallons is the minimum.
Minimum.
And I'll tell you what, my smallest tanks anymore are 58 gallons with 29 gallon sumps. Those are my smallest, other than my brown nurseries. And it makes a huge difference in the longevity, the amount of work, the amount of cleanup you have to do. It's just, it makes your life so much nicer to have the bigger tanks.
Less work. Sure. Holly, you keep trying to say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with Cheryl. And what I was just trying to say is they're a very dirty fish. They're like the goldfish of the marine fish world.
Cheers.
There's
Yes.
there's a lot of pollution involved. So
Dirty,
like
they just
Cheryl,
poop a
so,
lot.
so like Cheryl says, you need more water volume than you probably think you need, and also more filtration than you would think with a reef tank. Mechanical filtration, you want to make sure you have, you know, filter socks changing often, an oversized skimmer, I would recommend. They're dirty fish, so be prepared to accommodate that. They're a huge bio load on your tank.
And
So
I would disagree with Cheryl because it's not just that they poop a lot. They do eat and poop a
it's
lot, but
good.
as Dan has said multiple times, when they eat, they massacate the crap out of
Yes,
their gills. So they're
they
just dirty. I agree, Holly.
They only actually digest somewhere between 30 and 35% of what they consume to
Right.
begin. So that right there is what placing a 65% of all the food you're feeding is going into the tank,
Mm-hmm.
which is very different from what most other species or most other fish do. And that alone places a huge bio load. Then you get into the fact that when they do defecate, they're typically, again, the GI tract is not that fungal. Well, they don't have a stomach.
Right.
So basically everything passes through them slowly, and you end up with a large amount of fecal material compared to other fish. Then you're limited with your cleanup crew, depending on what type of seahorses you have. So you can't just throw in large crabs and stuff like that as a cleanup crew. You have to be careful with what you're doing. So there's a lot of different parameters you have to look at when you're setting up a seahorse tank.
And Ray points out all the time that, because that used to be my thing. Oh, just add more snails, you know, whatever. But Ray points out all the time that those snails poop too. So you're not really dealing with the organic problem by just adding more cleanup crew. Although they
And you
might,
got the microlife to do the same thing also.
right. So, you know, even though
What you
you're,
put in has to come out some way, and the best way is a combination of good filtration that's changed a couple times a week,
Yep.
the mechanical stuff, and then a protein skimmer that's probably at least 4 times or rated for 4 times the volume of that you actually have.
so I'm thinking this is perfect timing for you guys, for me to tell you my news. Robert, I hope you're still with us, because if you're interested in setting up a seahorse tank, make sure you're subscribed, because I will be sharing the videos and walking through setting up my next seahorse tank. If you haven't watched before, Miss Holly is sending me a pair of her seahorses next week, with all hope. And what I wanted to do is prove that it can be done easily, right? We talk on this channel all the time about, you know, the bigger the better with seahorses, as we just described. They're dirty, you know, you have to do more work if it's a smaller tank. You can't see organics. So even though you might have a bunch of cleanup crew that makes the tank look pretty, it might not be. And that's why a lot of seahorse tanks have nuisance algae problems, aside from the normal problems you'd have in a reef tank. And so, anyways, usually we say the bigger the better. Make sure you have a sump. Make sure you have this huge skimmer. That's about oxygenation too. and etc. And so we have these recommendations that we've gone over before. Check previous Wine Wednesdays, and you can see in Seahorse Sources group. But I wanted to like test it out and say, you know, if you're willing to do the work and don't want to spend don't curse, a bunch of money, could you do it in an all-in-one? And so my news that I posted earlier is that I have been looking for an all-in-one tank for weeks. And Chris Harkins was trying to help me. I found, oh my gosh, if you guys ever want a custom acrylic tank, I called Custom Acrylics and they quoted me a very decent price for an awesome tank. They were going to give it a blue background and blue bottom, which I was like, oh, that's like perfect, right? But they had needed like 3 months to get it to me. And I was like, that ain't gonna work, dang it. So you might see one of those in my near future in 3 months. But anyway, since the Seahorses are coming in a week, I've been pre-cycling the media, which I'll share with you guys in videos. But I couldn't find the tank. And I could have just set up another all-in-one. I could have put this, I could have just set up another sumped tank and shown that, but I've done it before. I could have put them in a tank that's already existing, but frankly, they're not pretty because I wasn't taking care of them. They got covered in algae. The Seahorses are thrilled, but it's not pretty. So I wanted to set up a pretty tank and prove once and for all, can it be done in an all-in-one long term? Couldn't find the tank. Everywhere online is talking 2 months, you know, minimum to get the tank to my house. I was so frustrated. And then I thought, you know, why not check the locals? And so I called the Reef. It's called the Reef. That's like 20 minutes away from me. And I was like, listen, I've searched everywhere. I know this probably isn't going to happen, but I really need 40-gallon minimum. And I know I'm pushing it, guys, but that's the point. I want to see if I can make it work long term in a 40-gallon on one that's only like 29 gallons of tank space, but 40 gallons volume, with a skimmer that would fit in an all-in-one, and, you know, a media reactor that would fit in an all-in-one, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh yeah, we've got one. We've got a 50-gallon too. Do you need a stand? Their prices were lower, which never happens, right? Usually you go to Amazon or online, it's always cheaper. Nope. The guy, I mean, the big kicker is it's not going to be a water box. You know what I'm saying? But I'm just trying to prove a point and see if I can do it. So yeah, I've rambled and rambled, but I'm really excited because I'm going to pick up this tank tomorrow. So Holly, we on, girl. I want my babies. And I've already got the media cycled, and we'll share those videos, and we'll be going through it with you. But if you want to know how to set up a Seahorse tank and you literally have no clue, make sure you're subscribed because I'm going to share. And if you want to do it easily in an all-in-one, I'm going to share that too. Sump is always the best option, guys. I will say that, because the organics, etc. You want an oversized skimmer. You want UV if you can. My personal opinion. Some people here don't use UV. There's differences of opinion, but with the all-in-one, I just want to see if it can be done long term, because you can always do it short term, right? All right, I'm done rambling, but yeah, yay! Tank will be here tomorrow. Yes, and we'll see how it goes. Because see, guys, and this is why I'm so excited about it. I know I'm still rambling, but every single Seahorse tank I have that's not like a temporary tank. I've got a quarantine tank, which I rarely use, but I've got tanks that, you know, are like 30-gallon, but that was for my bachelor pad, and it had hang-on back equipment. I didn't like it. Every real Seahorse tank in my home, the 65, the 90, all those are all sumped. And that is the best option because you've got the huge skimmer. I'm an algae girl, so I always have macros or a scrubber or something to do with algae doing the work for me. But I know a lot of people don't want to do that. So I'm trying to do these tests for you, yo. So Robert, stick with me, okay? We'll figure it out together. All right, I'm done rambling now. But I'm excited. Look, they're all like, are you still talking, Kelly? Sorry. Ray, you think I'll fail?
Why would you fail?
Well, I mean, we typically say if you don't have a huge oversized skimmer and you don't use, you know, some sort of reverse light cycle algae system, and you don't do this, that, and the
I never
other,
put a skimmer on my or on the Barbary tank.
there you go. Hey, and I wish Cheryl hadn't
You
walked
just
away.
do other things. That's
Yeah, you
all.
won't fail. You just might be doing more water changes or doing something different.
Well, and I did the other thing I talked with Chris about, and we were serious, guys, when I talked on Wine Wednesday last week. The other thing I'm really seriously thinking about doing is, since Cheryl had such a great experience with Ocean Rider, I am thinking about setting up this all-in-one with Holly's Beauties and showing how much work it becomes. And then having Chris come and visit me, and we're going to set up a tank right next to it, same size, same specs, but with a sump, and then get it maybe an Ocean Rider pair and see how that goes, and see if it won't be the same timing, of course, but I can say this is at 1 week, and see, is this harder or easier. I am also testing
Right.
Fritz, Dr. Tim's, and Seed to see which one works fastest and best. But go ahead, Cheryl. Sorry.
I love my sumps. I can swap things out. I can modify them to
Right.
customize them to what I want. And I would never go back to canisters or all-in-ones because I'm constantly depending on what is going in that system.
Right.
I'm modifying what I'm doing on the system in the sump. And that's my biggest
Crazy.
drawback. If I would just set something up and leave it alone, I'd be fine.
Right. No, and Cheryl, please understand, I'm not disagreeing with you. I always will recommend a sump. What we say in the recommendations in Seahorse Horses group and in the videos and on the website and everywhere is what I still stand by. I'm just trying to say, I'm trying to make it easier for people to keep seahorses, because many people just aren't willing to set up some huge system, for a pair of seahorses. They want
Yeah.
other things in the tank. They'll start adding coral, they'll start adding fish, and then the seahorses don't make it or they want more seahorses and they overstock. Blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
I just want to try to show that it can be done, while that might not be the best way. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Well, and it's like my thing is I don't have. I used to keep corals. I typically don't keep corals anymore.
right.
I typically don't have cleanup crews in my tanks. My tanks are, with the exception of one, all my tanks are bare bottom.
hmm
Um, and it's a little more work for me on one hand, but with the systems I've got now, I don't have to worry about it. I
Right.
don't have pests. I haven't seen a flatworm or aptasia or hydroids or any of this other stuff in years. And that is a huge savings for me also in terms of time and problem elimination.
Let me say for the record, Cheryl is right on. She gives the best advice, and she's absolutely right, and I agree with her. I'm just one of those rule breakers. No, I just want to try it, and if I fail, then I'm going to tell you all I failed.
Anyway,
What was it, Ray?
that's what life's all about.
Yeah,
You got to try different things. But
exactly.
it's going to be, as Cheryl says, it's going to be easier with her tanks with sumps than to try and make changes in an all-in-one.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
The only
absolutely.
tank I've never ever made any changes to was my abdominalis tank, and it's the same way as when I set it up 5 years ago. There's nothing changed at all in it.
Hey,
But then
Ray.
with
Okay.
abs,
Sorry, go
there's
ahead.
nothing that's easier to keep than abs. But with all my others, like the Reedi, the Combs, the Angustus, the Barbs, what else? There's a bunch of them there. But with any of those, I set up the tank and then I want to try something different.
Right.
And it would have been much harder if I didn't have a sump, either to put something in or
Yeah.
to have that extra volume available to make things more forgiving while I went through a change. So
Sure.
it was just a personal thing.
Well, and wait, I just want to say really quick, we're excited this week. We all keep talking, and I love it. I love it. No dead space. But I was just going to say, I think the times have changed too, because now they're making skimmers that will fit in an all-in-one. We always have said we don't like to hang on backs. There are skimmers now that fit in. They're still small. I mean, if it doesn't work, y'all, I'm going to tell you it doesn't work. But I can even put my K1 media reactor in an all-in-one. that wasn't,
Yeah.
you couldn't do that years ago. But Ray, oh God, what was I going to ask you? Oh, did you say the barb tank doesn't have a skimmer?
No, I never put a skimmer on the barb tank.
Has it been
But
more
my
work and have you
skimmers
had,
are
sorry.
huge, and so I have no room for it. It's sitting here against the wall here. The wall is about the same width as the tank is. There's just no place that I can put a big skimmer here that have, my skimmers are 6 foot tall,
Oh
4 inch
shit.
in diameter. The air stones in them are 2 by 2 with a 7/8 diameter bore. They're about 7 inches long.
I'm going to need to see a picture of that skimmer. Go ahead, Ray.
You got to see the one with the skimmer on the roof.
Oh my
I love
God.
that picture, Ray. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, sometimes I'd make a mistake when I'm dialing in on them. And if the
He ended
skimmer
up with, what was it, skim mate on the ceiling.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's a 4 by 4 box on the top of it.
Well, I
And
want to see a
more
picture.
like
That looks
a
so cool. That
foot.
sounds so cool.
It's a foot,
Oh,
a
but
foot cube box on top of the skimmer. And at that particular time, I made a change on it, and I didn't stay downstairs to wait and see and make another adjustment. And when I finally got back downstairs again to look, this stuff was all over the ceiling,
Oh,
all the
jeez.
foam. And it's a good thing I have, when I designed them, I put in an overflow capability so that anything that went over went back into the tank. So it wasn't going out on the floor or anything.
Thank God.
you
So
made me feel good. I didn't feel bad when I overflow my skimmers. It caused
Oh,
problems.
man.
yeah,
Now
See,
I think I need
that's
a whole
why
house
if you
skimmer.
put it
Would I
back
get
in the tank,
vacuum
you can take
less?
it out again.
wait,
You
wait,
get
wait.
it on the floor, you got a lot of work to do.
Wait,
Yeah.
Holly, what'd you say?
I just said, now I feel it. Now that I know they can get that big, I need a whole house skimmer. Then
Right.
when
Yeah.
I vacuum less, can I do my housework that way?
Well, and the thing is, Ray's awesome. Cheryl is right. Holly's setup is amazing, which I'm still working on that video. Oh, total side note, guys, but I finally finished the Krista video. It'll be out this week on macroalgae, and then the Sea Dragon video with gosh, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. The Sea Dragon video will be out. Deborah Corker, right? That will be out the following week. Sorry it's taken so long. Krista didn't. We wanted to make sure the Zoom wasn't visible, so I had to use a bunch of pictures. It just took forever. Anyways, apologies, but it's done. And then, oh God, I just totally lost where I was going with this. Oh my goodness. Love when that
By the
happens.
way, if you want to
Oh,
see big skimmers, I don't know whether they're still doing it or not, but about 30 years ago, when I was building mine, I went down to our London pollution plant, where they treat all the water and everything.
right.
This is where skimmers were first came into use for
Right,
commercial
right.
purposes, like
Yeah.
cleaning the industrial waste and cleaning civic waste and so on. And
Correct.
these skimmers are about 5 foot in diameter, about 20 foot tall, and they had about 30 of them
Wow.
down there.
Jeez.
And you want to see some skimmers doing something, man. And this is fresh water.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want
I
to
don't know
clean
if
them.
you've ever tried to use
Oh,
a skimmer
man.
with fresh water, but you don't get
Stinky.
anywhere near the results that you do with salt water.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Well,
who
but
for
They're
that
amazing.
part, huh?
right. And I feel sorry for people like Paula that work at like the Dallas Aquarium and that have to. She doesn't have to do it, but like her people have to do this crazy maintenance. Oh my gosh, should be. But anyways, big skimmers, good. Bigger tank, good. Sump tank, good. I'm just trying to, test
Yeah.
as Ray said, and see if we can do it in a different way. And
Are you going to have room
I
for
think she's just
K1?
getting lazy.
hey, no, I'll
Yeah,
have to do more work.
yeah, she's doing K1 in it too.
Yep, I
You-
got in this tank, which I'll show you guys tomorrow. But it would I think it's custom. It's not a name brand. But it's longer. I wanted a cube. I really wanted a cube just because of the spacing. I wanted to put the two tanks next to each other. But I can't get one within the time I need to get it in. So this tank is longer. It's got two, what do you call them, return hoses, return thingies, and it's got two socks, and then it's got two chambers, and then the chamber for the sump. And so in the first chamber, I'm putting the skimmer, and in the second chamber, I'm putting a all-in-one media reactor that'll have the K1 in,
Okay.
and a little
I'm
bit of rock.
already thinking about, well, you could add a baffle here and you can put this there.
Well, and as I've said all along, if anything goes wrong or I feel it's not working, then I'll tell you guys it's not working, and I'll put the seahorses in the bigger tank. You know, it's not like they'll be hurt. So, but
I'm the nut. Okay, I've got a 58. Yep. Took out the overflow, put in standpipe and sleeve, made it a grow out tank. But what happens is it's fine when I've got, 10 or 15 in there. All of a sudden, then you have 70 in there,
right.
and you're scrambling to add more filter media, cycled filter media, because you know you're going to have a problem if you're not careful.
Well, don't worry, because as soon as these seahorses get here, I'm going to have a talk with the male, give him condoms. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But
Hey,
hey,
those don't work.
I know, right?
The condom doesn't work. Neither does the pouch button. A little button with a little elastic thing around that goes behind them to hold it in place.
Right.
Off with their tail.
Well, I'll deal with it. But hey, before we get way off subject, Ray, what I was asking you, I think I asked you, and I don't think we got a full answer, is has it been more work on the Burberry tank without the skimmer? Have you had more problems, or has it just been fine?
Oh, I had problems, but none of them were, as you know, we were never really able to identify any except for the one that had the Asterina on it.
Right.
The other problems, like even Dan didn't have any answers for me. It's stuff that I'd never ever come across in 18 years, and I think Dan said he'd never seen it either.
Right.
But other than that, I would have to do more larger water changes on that tank than I would say if I had downstairs tanks with the Aractus or the Reed Eye or the Angustus, that kind of thing. Any of them that I had the skimmer on, I didn't have to do near as much in the way of the water changes.
Right. So, it really is. I'll just repeat myself again. It's best and easiest if you follow what Cheryl has been describing and Ray has been describing, big sump, big skimmer, lots of filtration. That is the way to go. But I even had Dan's blessing to try this all-in-one idea. So, we'll figure it out together. That's the point of these things, right?
Well, Holly,
wait.
that you put on your tank.
Hang on, Cheryl, I know you're asking a question, Holly's answering, but I did want to mention too that I do plan to get Gorgonians and macros and stuff from Harkins and from different places. So I'll still have macros in the tank. And have you guys seen that they now have hang on back refugiums? I know it's not new, but I just saw them and I was like, oh, yay.
I got one, I'll sell you.
Yeah, I want it. Does it work?
Oh yeah. The biggest problem with them is they tend to collect detritus, and you end up with a layer, and depending on your flow in them, you tend to end up with a layer of detritus that you have to clean out. And I reached the point that I don't need
filter it before you put it. You filter the water before it goes through the.
Good idea.
You have to.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Ray. Right. Well, don't worry, guys. I'll buy it from Cheryl, and then we'll work on it together, and we'll figure it out together, so that all of you watching can then do it yourself if you want to. Yay! Okay, Cheryl. Now I'm done rambling. What were you asking Holly when I interrupted?
What size sump did you end up putting on your acrylic tank that you got?
On the grow out tank, right?
Yeah.
It holds about 15 gallons of water at the level I keep it at. It's sold as a 30, but I actually measured how much water, because it's got the baffles that flows through and stuff.
Right.
The level of water that I want to keep it at it actually comes to around 15 gallons.
That's
Which
a
isn't as big as I wanted it, but like I said, 30 is what they
right.
say. But when you actually put the water in it, it's not that.
Yeah,
That's a
that you,
fantastic point, because you say I'm putting a 40 as a sump and you don't realize that's not 40 gallons of water. If you want a huge
Yeah,
skimmer that works, you can't have it full. So
yeah,
great point. Same with an all-in-one. You say it's 40 gallons. It's really only 29 with an 11-gallon filtration scheme at the back. So go ahead, Cheryl. Sorry,
yeah.
you were saying something. I felt like I overtalked you. Okay, well, anyways, so Holly, or maybe I interrupted you.
it ends
So
up being 84 gallons. I figured out altogether between the tank itself and the sump. It's 84 gallons altogether.
So the
cheers.
tank is what about 84, just about 70 gallons.
Yeah, it's an odd amount because it's an odd shape, and because of that
The box,
overflow.
yeah.
You know, because, and I think that's important to remember, you know, when you're measuring tanks. And see, my husband pointed this out to me because I was going on the computer where they put the size of your tank, and he says, well, you need to measure it from the inside. He says, and remember, it's not totally full of water. You can only fill it up to the overflow. So when you're measuring your how many gallons it actually holds, keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And
And that's
displacement.
the same thing with the sump is, yeah, the box is probably 30 gallons, right? Like it says online when you order it. But when you put the water in it, actually how much water goes to the point where it's going to go through the baffles and throw through everything, it's not as much as what they say it
Oh
holds.
yeah.
It
What?
hold 30 gallons, but that's not what's in it. Right?
Yes, and displacement. If you put a bunch of rock in, that's taking up space and giving you less water volume.
Mm-hmm.
So, but go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry. Was that it?
Yeah, so that's how I figured out my sump was I actually put water in it gallon by gallon.
How big's the skimmer, Holly?
It's sized for a 240 gallon.
Which
No.
what model? Which manufacturer model?
It's a Simplicity DC.
Go big or go home.
Simplicity 240. And that's the same one I have on my display tank, and I really like it.
Oh, you know what? That's what, guys. That's why I was rambling about finishing all these videos. Is Holly shared her setup with me, and I'm working on that video also. It will come, I promise. Holly, sorry it's taken so long. That's why I was rambling about the videos, but yeah, because her setup's really cool, and the way she's done it's really cool. Overcoming obstacles, and making sure she gives the seahorses what they need. Really great. So we'll have a video about it soon. But okay, guys, listen, it's 9:30. Ray, it's way past your bedtime. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's past my bedtime, but
I'm just trying to dig up the page that I've got the skimmers on, so I'll just send you the link.
yes, please do, because I want to see your big skimmers.
I want to see those giant skimmers.
Yes.
That picture
up to one skimmer. Is that how it works?
Say it again, Holly.
Why are your skimmers so big? Do you have like multiple tanks on one skimmer, or huge tanks?
No, but I built these all before I even got into seahorses. They were all for my marine tank. And I just found that bigger skimmers work better than smaller ones on my marine tanks.
Well, you're right.
And then when I started in the seahorse tanks, well, I had these skimmers sitting there, and I was getting out of the marine because it was just too much as my body deteriorated. So I figured, well, use these. I already got them. Why build more?
there is still a picture of one of those with the Acclimate on the ceiling. I'll have to find it. It's in seahorse.org.
Find it.
I'll send that too.
Okay, thank you, because I'll post about it for sure, y'all. So watch for the post.
That picture only shows the top part of it, but that's the part that's impressive.
The dangers
That's
of
the
big skin
funny,
lettuce.
yeah.
But anyways, okay, Ray, when I get that, I'll be sure to post about it for all you guys watching, be sure to watch for that. Hey, and listen, anything we talk about on Wine Wednesday, don't forget, even if the topic is not what you want to talk about, you can always come and ask a question, as Robert did. Robert, stick with me. I'm going to show you exactly how I set up a seahorse tank, at least this type. And of course, we'll help you in any way we can. Head to Seahorse Sources group and ask some questions. We're right there for you. But yeah, you can always ask questions on Wine Wednesday that aren't related to the topic. And even if you watch it afterwards, like Deborah, I'm so sorry, I forgot your name for a second. But she joins us every Friday. She watches it on Friday because that's when she finally can. If you join us later and you have a question or a comment, feel free. We're going to see it and we're going to talk about it next week. But I am going to have to call it for tonight unless anybody's got anything else really super important. All right then. Everybody say bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Cheers, everyone. Happy Wine Wednesday. See you next week. Cheers.